The Mercedes-AMG GT R is street legal, but it's not at its best on public roads. However, it is amazingly good at the track. At 3,500 pounds it's no lightweight, but the car shrinks around you. The twin-turbo V8 sends 577 horsepower and 516 pound-feet to the rear wheels. It's actually buried deep inside the engine bay, completely behind the front axle. Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires make more grip than a proper racing slick did 10 to 15 years ago. Brakes are carbon ceramic, racing buckets and brightly colored seat belts. This must be a track day special. Twist this knob to make the electronic aids more permissive. You can see how many G's you're pulling, but doing that while actually pulling G's is probably a recipe for an off-track excursion. That sure is a busy center console. Yes, it has its own lap timer. The rear wing is made from carbon fiber, as is the roof, front splitter, front fenders, rear diffuser, and even the torque tube. The AMG GT is a handsome thing, and its looks are improved by the R treatment. As a beginner or even intermediate musician, you do not hop up on stage with jazz legend Dizzy Gillespie, where he's still alive. If you're not confident in your ability to keep up with all the chord changes, where you are in the song's form, or the sheer tempo blowing by like a runaway train, it becomes a disaster. But overcoming intimidation and stretching oneself is part of musical growth. The Mercedes-AMG GT R is the automotive Dizzy Gillespie, and taking the wheel is the equivalent of sitting in with him. The timid will run away. But then they'd never know how easy it could actually be to sit in with a jazz master. With aggressive spoilers, a gaping and hungry toothed grille, huge tires and a pounding V8 engine, the AMG GT R glowers as you approach it, much like an imposing Gillespie might at an open jam session. Until the music starts. If the GT R could bark or snarl, it would do that, too. Turns out, though, that the big attitude is largely show. The AMG GT R does not start life as a normal GT or GTS model with additional boost shoveled on top. You would be a certifiable lunatic to approach anything even halfway near its limits on public roads. Lightweight components. If not a lightweight car, lightweight components abound on an Indy GT R. The roof, front splitter, front fenders, rear wing, rear diffuser, several braces under the car, and the torque tube tying the engine and transaxle together are all carbon fiber. The front carbon ceramic brake rotors measure 15.8 inches in diameter, 401 millimeters, and use 6-piston calipers. By the way, the carbon fiber front fenders allow a wider front track width by 1.8 inches, 46 millimeters, while the rear track jumps by 2.3 inches, 58 millimeters, over the non-GTR. This nets additional room for fitting larger 19 by 10 and 20 by 12 inch wide forged alloy wheels wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires, street legal track tires if ever any existed. Truth be told, the GTR is a very rough sports car to live with solely on the street. It was born for the track. The smallest grooves and ruts in the highway turn the GTR into a bloodhound hunting ascent, juking from side to side. When cold, the carbon ceramic brakes feel distant and touchy. Normal-sized bumps turn into kidney punches. Driving the GTR like a normal SUV or sedan turns you into a boxer's sparring partner. But then you arrive at the track. In this case, the Bob Bondurant Racing School's West Track. On the road, terror becomes a track-bound pussycat. Holy hell. I've run the essentially race-prepped Bondurant School Dodge Vipers around this place before, though the 600-horsepower darlings were officially retired last year. The GTR is at least as quick, despite being about 300 pounds, 136 kilograms, heavier. But the GTR's outright quickness around the course is not the biggest takeaway, it's how easy the car has to drive at that pace. With a hood that long, with that much weight, with that much polar moment, the transmission being situated in the back and the engine towards the front middle, you might think it'd be a pig dynamically. Just the opposite. The engine itself is more closely mid-mounted than some cars, with the engine actually behind the occupants. The 4.0L twin-turbo V8 is completely behind the front axle line and half under the dashboard. Porsche is long credited with making a dynamic silk purse out of a Saussure with the rear engine 911, and with good reason. That setup overcomes physics. But the same is almost as true for the GTR. The old AMG stereotype is that of a German muscle car with way more engine than chassis. If that was ever true, it no longer is, but the fact does remain that engines are the company's biggest jam. Compared to the standard-issue AMG GT, the cylinder head sports are honed and enlarged slightly to improve flow, and the two BorgWarner turbochargers grow in size, too. The standard AMG GT engine is no slouch, but the GTR bests the GTS by 74 horsepower, 55 kilowatts, and 37 pound-feet, 50 newton-meters, sparking out 577 horsepower, 430 kilowatts, and 516 pound-feet, 700 newton-meters, of torque. The increase is largely due to greater boost at 19.6 psi, 1.35 bars, from 17.4 psi, 1.2 bars, but that also mandates a drop in static compression from 10.51 in the GT to 9.51 for the GTR. Mercedes-AMG uses the same 7-speed dual-clutch transmission from the GT and GTS models, but ratios are juggled a bit to get the spread from first through seventh a bit closer. Since it's actually a transaxle, it incorporates an electronically controlled limited-slip differential. The GTR actually flies a multifaceted flag on track. There's a bevy of tweaks you can select from the driver's seat in order to dial things into your liking. Chassis, engine, and transmission responsiveness come in 5 attitudes: comfort, sport, sport plus, race, and individual, for which you tweak each individual parameter yourself. Dampers themselves have 2 different settings, as does the exhaust. You can also specify manual gear changes. Once acclimated and up to temperature, front grip doesn't quit until you ask something really stupid of it, and at that point, it quickly tells you you're being stupid and to precisely what level of stupidity. And with an adjustable stability control knob straight in the middle of the dash where you can dial in the level and threshold of intervention, you can be an instant hero. If you try left-foot braking as done in single-seat race cars or racing karts, where there's inevitably overlap in pedal application, the GTR can actually cope. The powertrain and stability calibration allows you to seek top upright speed, as long as you've chosen the right stability setting. You can pick up the throttle on corner exits before completely releasing the brake, which is unlike nearly any production car I've driven. But the notion of a driver tuning his own level of stability control, even within various modes, is pretty astonishing. A dash-mounted 9-position knob allows an increasing level of slip as you dial it clockwise. And this feature is only on the GTR, not the GT or GTS. Taking variability even further, adjustable perch coil-over spring damper units allow ride height changes and preloading of springs, just like a real race car. On large, not even Gran Turismo Sport gives you this much fine control over your traction and stability control. The incredible shrinking supercar back out on track at Bondurant, the 109 degrees Fahrenheit degree, 43 degrees Celsius day would normally spell doom for the brakes on a 3,500 pounds, 1,588 kilograms, sports car. Not for the GTR. Not only do the brakes happily gobble up all the heat of a 15-minute session in brutal desert conditions, so did the engine and transmission. The highest speed encountered on this particular course in the GTR was about 145 miles per hour, 233 kilometers per hour, which reduces down to a flat 60 miles per hour or so left, 97 kilometers per hour. This means repeated hard braking for a significant duration, lap after lap. Not to mention the other 8 heavy braking zones. No sweat for the GTR's brakes. The GTR also turns in far more responsibly than any 3,500-pound car has a right to, and that's not just down to the car's steering, at both ends, as the car has 4-wheel steering. The electronically controlled differential can assist ya underbraking, too. Dynamically, the car simply shrinks in size and mass on track, unless you start sliding around intentionally. However, the rearward seating position relative to the car's centerline heightens the sensation of oversteer when hooning like a drift king. It all adds up to a top-shelf $160,000 at minimum track day special in the Porsche 911 GT3 Rupees and Corvette CR1 Camp. And though the GTR is large and heavy, those traits diminish the faster you run it. Listing image by Jim Resnick.